Hey guys, Andre from Norman Hill Realty. I'm a real estate agent here in the Greater Toronto Area, and this is the first episode in what I hope to become a series teaching you everything you need to know about purchasing your first real estate investment property. We're gonna go through everything from the math behind it, to looking at listings online, to going to see the property in person, to advertising for tenants, screening tenants and selecting tenants, and then finally managing your properties once everything is said and done. In this episode, I'm going to talk about my story, how I felt 5 years ago when I first purchased my first real estate investment property, and how do I feel now 5 years later after I purchased 7 properties and I manage 12 tenants. If you are in the Greater Toronto Area, please do reach out to yours truly. I'd be happy to help you find your first property, and you get all of this live and in person. Let us begin. So I bought my first property in Oshawa back in 2015. It was a semi-detached, and then I bought 4 more detached bungalows in Oshawa as well. Purchase prices were $315,000 for the semi, and then in the 400s for the detached bungalows. 420, 427, 430, and then finally 460. Now, the thing about these is they were all split into 2 units. So I put a tenant upstairs and I put a tenant downstairs. And this would be great because I didn't have to sink any money into the properties at the end of the month because they would cash flow. It means I had money left over at the end of the month. I also purchased 2 semis in Barrie. Purchase prices were $271 and $315,000. These only have 1 unit in them, so only 1 tenant lives there. It is a lot easier to manage, but the trade-off is that I don't make as much money. I don't cash flow as much. It's pretty rare to cash flow with single units, but it is still possible, and I do still cash flow with those units, but just not as much. So if I have 1 major repair, that kind of wipes out all my cash flow for the whole year. Now, I should mention it because I know everybody's thinking of it. How does this 12-year-old afford 7 properties? Well, I have a partner. Surprise, surprise. So this is the way we do it. We split the down payment 50-50, and then we put the mortgages in his name. The bank has kind of capped us at 7 properties. It's supposed to be 5 properties, so any other properties we buy now the mortgage will go in my name, but that's how I am able to afford 7. It makes it a lot easier. I take care of absolutely everything. He's never even seen the property or stepped foot on the properties before, so he just looks at the numbers and we bump ideas off each other, and the numbers are good at the end of the year. He's happy, I'm happy, and we have a good thing going. So how did I feel buying my first investment property? I felt great. I felt like on top of the world. I thought, hey, I could do this better than anybody. I watched a few videos, probably what you guys are doing right now, read a few things, and I was off to the races. I am a real estate agent, so it was a little bit easier for me. I didn't have problems buying the property. It was very routine for me, no emotions or anything. If I had to compete $5,000, $10,000 more than listing price, I had no problem. This was back in 2015, 2016, so the market was very, very hot. You had to beat out other competitors. I really didn't care because I was going to hold these for a long term, so $5,000, $10,000 was not going to be a deal breaker. Also, I had the numbers behind the property, so realistically, I'd still cash flow even if I was paying that extra $5,000 or $10,000. So no problem purchasing the property. After I got the property, I spent way too much time there. I did everything. I tried doing plumbing, I did electrical, I installed appliances, I cleaned, I did absolutely everything. And you know what? I spent way too much time, and I think a lot of people do this when they first start. It's their baby. They want to do absolutely everything. They spend too much money, and they coddle it. Is that not cuddle? Coddle it. You spend too much time. It's a rental property. Treat it like a rental property. I would go to Home Depot, rent a truck, pick up the dishwasher, drive it to the rental property, unload it because dishwashers aren't that heavy, drive back the rental truck, and then drive back to the real estate investment property and then install that appliance. And that was trying to install it after watching a few videos, and it took me forever. There'd always be like a little issue, something would be different. And sometimes I would leave at 10 a.m. in the morning and I wouldn't come back till 3 a.m. at night. Way too much time, so do not get trapped. Spend the money, get somebody who is a professional to do it. You don't have to go overboard, but for certain things, why try to spend days upon days to save $200, $300 when somebody can do it in a few hours and do it better than you can? At first, I get it. you're excited, do it. But as time goes on, I think you'll realize don't spend too much time on things you do not know how to do. So overall, I was pretty pumped. Everything was going well. I was pretty excited. But what changed now? Like, what has changed in the last 5 years that, you know, makes me less excited than when I first bought the property? The biggest thing that's changed is that I have 2 kids. So I have a 5-month-old and a 16-month-old. No. And they are a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work. Me going to the office feels like going to the day spa in comparison to me having to take care of my kids. It is a lot of work, and I just don't have time to schlep out to Oshawa for a whole, you know, an hour there to drive, then figure the problem out, do something for an hour there, and then come back. And sometimes it's not even in the morning because tenants or the contractors can't make it then, so it chops my day in half. I absolutely hate it. And the other thing is I just hate dealing with the problems that come with these rental properties. You know, I'm kind of over it. It's not just one thing here and there. There's always something that goes wrong. We are 3 weeks into 2020, and I have had a pipe burst from outside because somebody didn't close the hose properly and drain it, so it flooded the furnace room. And then I had to reinstall pot lights, and not just 1 or 2 pot lights, I mean 26 pot lights. And then I had a roof leak, so I had to repair the roof, and now I'm gonna have to repair the drywall, all that kind of stuff. You know, it just never ends. I'll be sitting at home after eating dinner after a long day, and then bing, my phone goes off, and then it says, you know, tenant something, and I'm like, oh God, what is it this time? And, you know, it's not that they're even complaining about anything that they shouldn't be complaining about. It's the house. There's some problem with the house. They contact me. No problem with that. I don't have an issue with that. I love my tenants. They love me. But there's always something going wrong. And sometimes, you know, when it rains, it pours, and I'm just done dealing with all those issues. I hate it. So that's the biggest thing that has changed. I also have to do expenses at the end of each month. By expenses, I mean utilities. And so because they're split, I have to break down the utilities and go 60-40 with upper and lower levels. And then I send them the bill. And because I want to be transparent, I attach all the bills to my invoice. And then they pay me through an online site. There's a lot, we're gonna go into that later on. There's a lot of ways I could do it, but this is the way I do it, or else people are gonna abuse it if it's all inclusive or that kind of thing. And I hate doing it at the end of each month. It's just, I have to spend half a day doing these reports, and I'm thinking, like, if I'm gonna keep these properties for longer than 30 years, I'm gonna have to do this every month for 30 years. And it's a bit draining just because I'm so busy right now. I just hate doing it, and drags on and drags on. Sometimes I'm late on it. I just absolutely hate that. I really hope I figure out something, how to do that a bit more efficiently, or maybe hire somebody to do that at the end of each month. I know I'm complaining, but when you have a bunch of properties, it gets to be a little much. If you have 1 or 2, then it is no problem, especially if you live closer. So what are some things I've done well? I think the best thing I've done is put good tenants in my properties. My tenants love me. I love my tenants. I haven't had 1 missed payment in 5 years, never had an issue. So, you know, I think I've done that really well, and that's very important, because think of all the problems. I'm complaining about all these problems right now. Think of how much I'd be complaining if I had horrible tenants on top of that. It would be a nightmare. So make sure you screen your tenants properly. Do not break your rules. Something that I think I do poorly is kind of on the flip side of the tenant thing, is that I'm too nice. I give in too much, and it costs me money. That's probably why my tenants love me, because I say yes to everything. I have to start saying no and being a bit more firm with that. I always leave it at, okay, I'll look into it, or okay, maybe give me a week, I'll take a look at it, that kind of thing. And I just have to say, sorry, no, it's a rental property. You know, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be your end home. It's not, you know, you're not going to take care of it as if it's your primary residence. You're just going to leave, and it's a rental property. So sometimes I can't put a line to the fridge for water, those kinds of things. I'll give you an example. You're probably going to think I'm crazy. So I had a tree branch fall on my tenant's car, broke the back windshield, and so they were pissed. They wanted me to pay for it, and I said, look, that is why you have insurance. Like, why would I pay for that? That is something I have no control over. Why would I pay you? They were pissed because they would have a $500 deductible. And the problem is also that Remember in Toronto when there was that enormous windstorm and half of Toronto lost their shingles and trees fell everywhere? It was that day that a branch fell down as well. It didn't hit the car or anything, but they told me, hey, you should probably cut down the tree. And most of the trees already cut. And so on that day I had 2 fences fall. I had a front porch blow off. Literally the whole front porch blew off, and then I had 2 enormous branches that fell. I had to get hauled away. So everybody experienced something that day. So I looked into it. Realistically, I would not be at fault even if they mentioned something, because who wouldn't mention something? Hey, what if it happens again? So I would not be at fault if they took me to court, if I said, hey, fight me, I'm not paying for anything. But guess what? Nice guy Andre paid for half of the deductible. And you know what? You know how I justify it? I said, look, I don't want them to leave. I don't want to have that vacancy, because then I'd have a $1,500 vacancy. So, per month, maybe 2 months. They're already not getting along with the lower level tenant for some reason. So that's why they were a little bit on edge. So I said, hey, I'm going to make them happy. I'll pay for half of it. And, I made the problem go away. So that's a big tip. If you can throw money at your problems, that is the easiest way to do it, especially if it's like $50 to $100, $150. Just pay for that problem to go away. It's just so annoying dealing with problems that quick fixes like that, I do it all day long. So yeah, I paid for half the deductible. You might think I'm crazy. I'm a nice guy. I'm trying to change. But again, at the end of the day, if you keep your tenants happy, they're going to stay for longer. You're going to have less vacancy, and you're going to have an easier time managing the property. So am I looking to purchase another property anytime soon? No, probably not. You know what? I have enough. I'm kind of done. I would be interested in consulting for a bigger project or collaborating on something like that, maybe 10 units plus, something bigger. But I don't want to, split properties into 2 when they're not meant to be split into 2. So these old bungalows, it's, you have the sound issues, you have the heat and cold issues. I'm not interested in that. Maybe single unit properties, but where the rent's really good, but no splitting of these bungalows anymore. So that's pretty much it for the first episode. I know I rambled, but hopefully that helps you. It gives you some perspective, because you're jumping into it and you're like, hey, how did other people do it? How did they start from scratch? How did they feel? So I hope that gives you some perspective, and stay tuned. We're going to go into absolutely everything. I'm going to break everything down as if you were a 5-year-old. So stick around. And if you are looking to buy something in the Greater Toronto area, text, call, email, live chat with me. Do not leave a voicemail, guys. It's 2020. Nobody listens to voicemails. Text if I don't answer, if I'm busy, and I will get back to you really fast. See you in the next one.